Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of HBO's The White Lotus. We're talking episode 3, which was titled Mysterious Monkeys, and there was a lot of monkey business going on in this episode, and I'm so excited to talk about it with you all and break it all down here in this spoiler review. But before we do so, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed my review of episode 3 of The White Lotus, well, make sure to like the video, share the video. It helps out the channel a lot, but also appreciate the support. And in the comments, once you've seen episode 3 of the show, what'd you think about it? Let's talk about your pros, your cons. Is this your favorite episode out of 3? Who's your favorite character out of the first 3 episodes? Let's discuss it all in the comments below. So, my initial thoughts coming off of this episode, I gotta say, the episode has its moments, Armond and everything that we would get and learn about him, and seeing Mark and the aftermath of learning about his dad, and this continuous situation with Paula and Olivia and all the other characters, Shane and his wife Rachel. But I'm not gonna lie, that this episode, it wasn't as sharp in the writing department. It wasn't as interesting as some of the other, the previous 2 episodes. And I think that kind of boils down to, and I mentioned it, last week, whenever we transition to catching up with Belinda and Tanya, nothing against those actresses, I'm just not as interested in their story. And we spent a lot of time with Tanya this episode, and there are moments I thought it was funny with her in a boat, but I'm just not that invested in that story, and we spent a lot of time with them. So again, there are moments that I enjoyed, and we'll break it all down, but I just wasn't as engaged in this episode as I was in the previous 2. But hey, we'll talk about it in this breakdown. Let me know what you all thought about it. Again, this is probably my least favorite episode, but still, that being said, I still enjoy this show, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you all. But let me know what you all thought about episode 3 in the comments below. So let's kick things off with the breakdown as the episode opens up. And I love that the show is 6 episodes and it's a 6-day trip, so we're literally not missing a beat from any of these characters besides them going to the restroom in the middle of the night or getting like a snack to eat. But this is essentially, we're watching their entire day to when they go to bed, and then the next episode is when they wake up. So I love that it's in real time because it makes it feel like you're actually there with them, which I would love to be in Hawaii right now. But as I digress, the episode opens up with Paula yet again with Mr. Nobody, as she calls him, the busboy. It's more than what she's living or saying to Olivia. She's really into this guy, and we'll talk about the end of the episode, obviously. But we see that Olivia wakes up and is calling for Paula, and she's not in the room. She eventually comes back in the room, and yet again, she lies about where she is, which brings me to the question I asked last week. What is the deal with their friendship/relationship? Is it a matter of they were friends since they were kids, they met in high school, they met in college? What is it about Olivia? Is she attracted to Paula? Is it a jealousy thing that the boy isn't attracted to her, that she doesn't want her to spend any time with anyone else because she's bringing her on this family trip for free? I don't know quite yet. Let me know where you all stand, and we'll talk about more of their scenes later on in this breakdown. But what is your thoughts on Olivia and Paula? Is it a reciprocal relationship? Does Paula like her, or vice versa? Let's talk about it in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. But I love, again, the sequence of waking up in the morning with our characters as we get the montage of Mark reliving the conversation he recently had with his uncle. We see Quinn has lost all of his electronics, and we know today's society, I'm guilty of it too. When you lose this thing, it's almost like you lost a hand. He loses electronics. We see Tanya waking up with her mom's ashes, and we see Shane and Rachel having some morning sex. Again, this episode was called Mysterious Monkeys, and there was a lot of monkey business, a lot of sex in this episode. I mean, hey, can't blame these people. They're on an island, you're on vacation, take advantage of it. But in that sex scene, I don't know if you all noticed, and this is kind of showing the cracks in the relationship, and we'll talk about the relationship and how certain things are higher prioritized than others, but it didn't seem like Rachel was really into it, and we'll obviously talk about her conversation with her husband a little bit later. But again, transitioning into waking up in the morning, we see our characters waking up in paradise, and we see the employees coming to work. Belinda, again, we spend a lot of time with Belinda and Tanya, but she's on the phone with her son, and she tells him essentially what's going on. And the son's like, Mom, listen, take advantage of the situation. If she says jump, you just say how high, which I don't know how I feel about that. Again, Belinda, we seem to kind of get the idea that she works hard, and she hasn't been, getting the proper due to what she does for a living, and people don't really notice how good of an employee or good of a worker she is, a good of a masseuse, good of a person she is. She's very undervalued undervalued. But I don't know if she should be so gung-ho on just taking the word of Tanya that she'll help her create this business. And she just met her 2 days ago. So I don't really know if I fall in the same camp as her son. Like, just take advantage of the situation, because the situation might take advantage of her. It might just be more of Tanya using her for this kind of, I need someone to lean on. I'm on this island by myself. Remember, Tanya's the only one that isn't with someone, relationship-wise. So she's just gravitating towards someone that's paying her some attention. So I don't know if Belinda should put all her marbles in this bowl, which is Tanya in the situation. But let me know if you all feel like she should take advantage of the situation, or if she should be a little bit more reserved about maybe opening this partnership with Tanya. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But let's go back to this morning routine as Belinda, which, by the way, someone mentioned in the comments last week, and I didn't catch it. I haven't revisited episode 2, but apparently Armond has a history with drugs and that he relapsed. Obviously, we saw him take the drugs last week, but apparently him and Belinda's aware of his drug addiction. I have to revisit episode 2 to confirm that, but she catches him in his car taking a cat nap, and this is just one of many examples in this episode of him just kind of getting further and further away of the person we met in episode 1. He's just, his job and the pressure of being the manager of the resort is really getting to him. And those drugs are temporarily helping him, but it may have him completely go off the rocker as we see him do some things in this episode that we'll talk about. But moving on down to our family, the Mossbacher family, and their morning routine, which is always funny to me. But this is an interesting conversation. As we cut to them in the morning, topic at hand comes about which dominates social media: cancellation. As Olivia is seeing that her dad, Mark, is not in the best demeanor, he's obviously upset about what he just learned. Nicole takes it upon herself to tell the family what he just learned and leave it up to Olivia. I don't know. Is she trying to make her dad feel better, or is she making fun of her dad in this moment because she says, hey, Dad, maybe Grandpa was a power bottom. Maybe he was a topper. Maybe Grandmother didn't allow him to use dildos in their sexual times together. So again, we don't know that much from Olivia besides her being seems to be obsessed with Paula, but we don't see that other side of her. Is she being nice to her dad, trying to lighten the mood, or is she just doing what she's done these past 2 episodes, which is kind of making fun of people when they're at a very vulnerable state? Let me know your thoughts on where you think Olivia was in this moment. But the conversation about cancellation, because Nicole brings up he has every right to be in his raw emotions after learning that his dad had a second life and then he died of AIDS. And I'm actually in that camp that I don't think, personally, and I don't know Mark is a fictional character, obviously, but based on the conversation, I don't think he was being homophobic about how he was reacting to the news he just found out as his daughter saying that he's coming off to be homophobic. And I think that kind of speaks to that younger generation in regards to not putting someone's sexual preference on them, but the idea that he just learned that his father had this second life and what it involved and how he died would be very shocking to someone's whole idea of someone. So I don't think he was being homophobic, but again, it just kind of goes into society. You just think they're homophobic, and as Nicole says, what's going to happen? You're going to cancel him? Very interesting conversation, and this was one of... Last week had a lot more kind of the trophy wife conversation, all the different things we talked about, but this week didn't have as many that type of conversation in this episode. But again, let me know where you all fall on that whole cancellation side. There's no right or wrong answers, but let me know, did you all feel that Mark was being homophobic, or was Olivia just being a little bit too, social media canceling type of mindset? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But going back to this conversation going on, Quinn, he doesn't care about anything that he just learned about his grandfather, about his dad being in his feelings. He just wants his electronics as his mom, Nicole, orders him a new phone, which again just speaks to the whole premise of this show. These people are on this island. They have this beautiful, food and the room is great and all this stuff, but all the stuff kind of comes out, all the demons come out, all the reveals come out on this beautiful vacation, which I kind of love about the show. But let's go back to our newlywed couple, Shane and Rachel, as they're having breakfast, and the conversation gets brought up about Shane being a little bit more horny than usual, and he brings up, well, I have a hot wife and I love having sex with you, and she says to him, well, that's not the top priority for me as it seems to be with you, which speaks back to episode 1 when Olivia and Paula kind of brought up some things about their relationship, how quickly things moved. Shane's very decisive. He knows what he wants. He's very good with words, and it kind of speaks to Rachel falling in. I don't think she's in love with Shane, if I'm being honest with you all. I think she's more infatuated with who he is as a person and what potentially he can offer to her. Not saying she's a gold digger by any means, and I think she's a very independent character thus far, but I think there was a matter of she saw a particular, I don't want to phrase it this way, but she saw a certain opportunity. She saw this guy who seemed to have it all and to seem to be, there was that attraction there, but was that attraction translated to love? And I think that she wanted to love Shane, but now she's figuring out who he is and how much of an asshole he is, that she's starting to see maybe this person, we're not on the same page. He cares more about sex, I care more about the connection, and they seem to be on two different levels. So let me know what you all think about that topic at hand between the two married new couple. But back to Armond, which I love this move by Armond here. And he wasn't in the episode that much, but I love what he did. The back and forth between him and Shane as he set Shane up on the boat. That earlier in the episode, he set Tanya up, who's going to be very drunk and going to be very emotional with her letting her mom go on the boat. And he put Shane and Rachel, which was surprising. Shane wanted to actually do something special for his wife, but Armond went ahead and put him on the same boat with Tanya, and we'll talk about that awkward dinner. But I thought that was such a power move by Armond, which for a second, I thought Armond was going to do actually and be like, you know what, I can put this beef behind and do something nice for him, and maybe he can leave me alone for the rest of his vacation. But no, tit for tat, and Armond definitely wins this round. But let's go to scuba time as we see Mark and, his son, Quinn, about to go to scuba. And by the way, at this point in the episode, Mark's drunk off his ass, which let's talk about in the comments. Who was drunker? Was it Tanya? Was it Mark? I think Mark was pretty hammered throughout this entire episode, drinking Bloody Marys and various dips of alcohol. I think he was drunk off his ass this entire episode. But he's having this conversation where he wants to be more honest with his son. And honestly, I think he wants to be more honest with everyone in his life, as he has a very awkward, uncomfortable conversation with Rachel that we'll talk about in a little bit. But this was an interaction I really was looking forward to seeing, and it didn't disappoint as we see Olivia and Paula at the pool, Shane coming up to, mess with them and being very flirtatious. Now, I initially thought that Shane was going to go up to them and say, hey, you really hurt my wife's feelings last week. I want you to apologize for her. But no, he was just essentially flirting with them, which I don't know the angle of if it's his way of trying to butter them up and get nice to them and then eventually say, hey, can you apologize to my wife? Or he was just essentially being Shane and being an asshole right in front of his wife and just flirting with him and not even realizing that he's flirting with them. But they're playing into it and just laughing, and Rachel's just like, you know what, I'm done with this, as she goes back up to the room. But let me know where you all stand. Was Shane flirting, or was he trying to just get into the good wills of those young girls and eventually make them apologize to his wife? Let me know in the comments. But we get another very interesting and a very awkward conversation and interaction between two characters that really haven't spoken thus far, and that is Mark and Nicole, or I should say Mark talking about his wife Nicole in front of Rachel as he's saying, oh, you're on your honeymoon, and talks about how he still loves his wife, but the spark isn't there, which obviously now in the show we're seeing the mirror image of how much more in common they have than they realize, which Nicole is kind of the Shane per se as far as the finances of her relationship between her and Mark. And obviously we can see that Mark and Rachel are kind of the ones that are just kind of on the back end in regards to the finances, being more reliant on their significant other to be that financial stable within the home. So he goes on and talks about his and his wife's sex life and how it's very not something that he's looking forward to. It's almost like he's forced to, but at first, the first 3 years, it took him forever to touch his wife. So Rachel this whole time is like, I do not want to be here right now, and I don't want to hear this conversation. But I think what she took away from that conversation is when he said that he still loves her, but there isn't that spark anymore, which goes back to the beginning of this episode and goes back to episode 1 when she tells Shane, will we always be like this? Will we always be young? Will we always have this type of attraction towards each other? Which I think, again, we're starting to see the crumbling of their relationship, and the love really might not be there for both characters. But my favorite part of this episode was when they were on the boat, because we're seeing Tanya is drunk off her ass. She is very emotional. Shane and Rachel are obviously uncomfortable, as well as Belinda, and also the Dylan who is there giving them the food and the drinks and all that. But we see her start to throw the ashes over the boat, but she just couldn't do it. But again, that whole scene, the show This episode should have been called Uncomfortable, because everyone was uncomfortable on the boat, and I was surely uncomfortable watching her talking about her mom being a nymphomaniac and being very jealous and crude and crying and being emotional. And it was just a very awkward situation, but probably my favorite moment of the entire episode. But let's wrap things up as we see Armond and Mark sharing a drink, and a big moment comes out for Armond, as a very funny moment as well, as Mark says, "You're gay, right?" He says, "Yeah, I'm gay." And he says, he wonders what it's like to have sex with men. And Armond asks him, "Would you like to find out?" And Mark takes his drink and goes about his day. But we learn in the very next scene that Armond, at least I think they confirm it, he's talking to Dylan and he compliments him on his man bun and said he's really into that type of look. So I guess this episode confirms that Armond is gay, which will be really interesting to see how that plays out the rest of the episode. If Mark's going to take up that offer of what it's like to have sex with a man, that would be very interesting in the coming weeks. But wrapping up the episode, Shane thinks that Armond has gaslighted him. He's been gaslit his whole life. It's just the hand that he's dealt as him and his wife eventually have sex. And again, I think that we're going to continue to see Rachel seeing the flaws in their relationship. But wrapping up the episode as we see Quinn watching porn on the beach, but we see Olivia finds Paula having sex. Again, this episode is called Mysterious Monkeys, and there's a lot of monkey sex, a lot of monkey business going on. She's having sex with this kid, and while her brother's watching porn on his dad's phone, she's watching porn in real life. And again, is it jealousy? Is she upset with her? Is she like, why are you spending time with him? I'm in love with you. I can't wait to see what this relationship really is all about. But it was very interesting to see this, and I wonder if this is the start off point for maybe Olivia being angry and maybe killing her friend Paula. We'll see, but nonetheless, again, there are moments I enjoyed. The boat scene was funny. The Armond, do you want to find out what it's like to sleep with men, was funny. But again, when we transition to Tanya and Belinda, it just is not as intriguing, not as interesting. We didn't get that much from Nicole in this episode. I really like that character. But again, the writing wasn't as sharp and I wasn't as engaged. But I still enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to see what episode 4 has to offer to us. So let me know what you all thought about the episode. Again, your pros, your cons, and what do you hope to see in next week's episode. And let's have the discussion that we talked about in this episode about the cancellation thing. Is Mark being homophobic and all the stuff that we got in the episode? Let's have a discussion about it in the comments. As always, if you stuck around in the video, I appreciate you all. Make sure to like, share, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all are having a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.